So let's do river right. And now, again, everything's basically the same. I'm controlling the rod. I'm going to do a spiral roll this way, and I'm going to start with the rod about head level. And it's almost like doing a letter E. Okay, you're going to go back, lowercase e. You're going to go back, medium, back slow, you're going to go medium, and you're going to accelerate around the nose of the E. That's where you need your acceleration, at the end of your stroke. It's always at the end of the stroke, regardless of what you're doing. If you're stroking the rod, it's got to be at the end of the stroke where you accelerate. Okay? You're always accelerating, but the end finish to that abrupt stop, that final thrust is at the end. And make sure you're doing it back, because what we're doing now is a back cast first and then a forward cast. What I see very often in the spiral roll are people put their thrust forward. They go like this, they accelerate this way, and then they try and do that because they're thinking so much about doing their forward cast. Forget your forward cast. You got to think about making a D-loop. That's the first part of the cast. So when you go to do this cast, what you really need to think about is go slow and make a D-loop. Really focus on making a D-loop. Reach back into that D-loop. So we're gonna go slow, medium, accelerate, touch, and go. And I'm keeping that rod low and level, same stroke, under the shoulder, stop at 430, lift the rod, and cast it out. The stroke is pretty much the same. The only difference, again, is kind of how I'm setting my anchor. In this case, I have my line laying below me. The only way to really get this line up is to do some sort of a spiral like this to get that anchor into position. I can't really do a single spey. I can. I mean, you can do like a switch cast with a little change of direction, but it's hard to line up because I'm casting. I'm trying to cast, let's say, across here. It's very hard to do a single spey and pull the anchor that way and cast that way. It can be done, obviously, and it looked good, but it's not really proper. You know, you're not really lining your D-loop up as well. It's more awkward. You know, you could kind of come out front and then pull it into a cast like that and make your cast out. But again, really the best way to do it is a spiral roll. It's much quicker, much more efficient. You basically just keep the rod moving, set an anchor, form a D-loop, and cast it out. Again, I'm level, and then I bring the rod up. And you can see that sets my anchor, that gets the D-loop aerialized. The D-loop is opposite where I'm trying to cast. You see how the top half of the D-loop is lined up exactly with my target. That's pretty much your driver. When I do a switch cast here, watch the top half of the D-loop. The top half of the D-loop is what I'm actually casting. That's what I'm driving. So we need to line that up with our target regardless of our cast. So I'm pushing out, I'm lining it up, and I'm casting out. Any questions on the spiral roll? And again, continuous, what's that? Well, there's a lift. You know, we talked about the lift, and it's the same stroke I've been going over all day on that back cast. You stroke, you finish flat, you lift the rod, and you go forward. It's a continuous motion. You're not really, you're waiting, you're always waiting for your D-loop, but while you're waiting, you're lifting the rod. You gotta lift the rod. If you stop and you hesitate and you stay at your backstroke finish and you don't lift the rod, the D-loop's gonna hit the water before you can stroke forward. So if I were to do my spiral and hesitate here, waiting for the D-loop, by the time the D-loop kind of forms, it's hitting the water. So I need that lift. I need that lift to keep that D-loop aerialized to where I can make that forward stroke. You guys understand how that lift is? That lift is super critical. You gotta have that lift. So the next cast we're going to talk about is a double spey. Okay, and the common mistake in a double spey is not setting the anchor right. Because it's not like a snap. Again, the snap is kind of easy. As long as you stop the rod in the right place, you kind of get your anchor right. For the most part. You know, you can mess it up other ways, but on a double spey, it's a little easier to mess up your anchor because very often either we overpower it and send the anchor too far upriver, or we underpower it and we keep the anchor too far downriver. And when I do that, when I come around, you see that L shape? Simon calls that a bloody L, right? If you guys watch Simon Gawesworth, that's a bloody L. Basically, my anchor's too far downriver to get it to turn into my D-loop. Too much of my line is downriver. I got to get that line up to get it into a D-loop. So I need to make sure that when I do this, I'm getting my anchor up into here. There. Then make my D-loop and cast it out. Now, when you do a double spey, it's unlike a snap tee in the fact too that when I do a snap tee, I'm peeling the line, the current's going this way, so I'm peeling the line against the current. It's very easy to peel the line because they're opposing each other. So the line peels off the water very easy, whereas a double spey, I'm going with the current. So I need to go a little bit quicker. It doesn't mean you gotta rip the line off the water, but you gotta keep it moving. You gotta accelerate a little bit quicker than the water. So I set my anchor, and I gotta make sure I just go a little bit quicker. And again, I didn't go very quick there, but I kept it moving, and I'm just going a little quicker than the current to keep that line moving so I can load and get that line to shoot back into my D-loop. Now when I set my anchor, let's go back to setting that properly. We talked about overpowering it and underpowering it. And again, you know, a good thing I didn't talk about it, I'm sure you heard it today from somebody about taping rods. It's not a bad idea, you know, to tape your rods so they don't come apart. Obviously I did not tape it. But when we do this, keep even, there's a couple ways of setting your anchor right. You can kind of just keep even tension, just enough power to get it right. You see that? Just keep it, and it's coming over fairly vertical, not totally vertical, just out in front of me, but relatively vertical. I generally don't want to keep it this low. I mean, you can, and it will work. And I would do that if I wanted to keep my D-loop a little bit smaller. So let's say my back was against the wall a little bit more and I didn't have a lot of room for my D-loop. I could keep it out in front a little bit more, and then that allows me to keep my anchor a little smaller and still punch a long cast without having a lot of room behind me. But generally speaking, if you have some room, keep it a little bit more vertical so the anchor's not too far out in front of you.